2 days ago, there was a bombing in Gaza, in one of their hospitals, that took the lives of more than 500 innocent people, mainly women and children who were just seeking safety and shelter in the hospital. The Zionists bombed the hospital and killed all these people in just one blast. And now, with the support of the Western media, they're trying to propagate the claims that it was not them, it was a failed rocket by Islamic Jihad. This is an example from CNN. Let's watch it and see their claims, and I will show you from their own video that what they're saying is absolutely false. Before we start, I need you to understand two things. Number one, what is a rocket? A rocket is a flying object that has very little maneuverability, meaning you cannot control how it moves left, right, up, down. Rockets are typically used to launch objects into space, versus if you want to hit an object that is flying, then you would have to use a missile. And a missile is much faster. It has to be faster than the rocket, otherwise, it will not be able to intercept it. And obviously, it also has to be maneuverable. So please remember that distinction, a rocket versus a missile. The Palestinians have only rockets. The rockets do not have any directional control. The Iron Dome uses missiles to intercept these rockets. And the way they intercept them is that they use radar to locate the rocket and then feed that information to the missile that's tracking them, and the missile maneuvers around until it gets close enough to the rocket, and then it detonates. And once it detonates, it destroys the rocket with it. Let's go back to CNN and watch what they have to say.
Don't about this blast. I want to bring in CNN military analyst, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling here. General, look, we have some video here, and I want you to just take a look at this. This is some footage that seems to show a rocket going up here.
So the number one point is seems. Number two is it's a rocket. Let's put a fact that this is a rocket. Let's watch.
And then something happens that's pretty catastrophic. When you see this,
And then something happens that is very catastrophic. So now we laid out what we want to put in the minds of people as facts, and then we're going to get this general Mark to tell us his analysis, his technical analysis.
what do you see?
I see a flame out of a rocket.
I see a flame out of a rocket. That's what he sees. And I can tell you that he's not telling the truth. He is a military person and he can easily tell the difference between a flame out and an explosion. So, a flame out is when the combustion process cannot continue inside the rocket, then the rocket stops generating the propulsion that keeps it flying. And basically, these rockets are using solid fuel, and solid fuel is burned inside the rocket, and then the combustion gases, which come out at very high pressure and very high temperature, they're exhausted out of the tail at high speed, and this gives propulsion to the rocket or the missile. The process inside the rocket stops, and therefore there's no more propulsion driving the rocket or the missile, and it falls to the ground in a free falling manner. So,
And we've been talking about this all day, and it's a result of what happened yesterday. But when you see that rocket going forward, this happens a lot with these kind of rockets that are supplied by Iran, Abi.
number one claim that this happens a lot, and number two claim it's supplied by Iran. I don't know where these rockets are from that Hamas has, but we have seen videos of them manufacturing these rockets. Besides that, the fact that he's trying to state that these rockets fail a lot is actually against his argument, because if it is true, then why haven't we seen other incidents like it? Why haven't we seen other buildings, hospitals, schools being burned by the over 4,000 rockets that Hamas and the other resistance groups have shot over to the Zionist state?
It is a rocket motor that doesn't work. It gets a certain distance and then it just flames out. And a rocket has a trajectory of a brick once it doesn't have a force behind it, so it immediately drops. So you see it right
This is a slow motion version of
there.
that video.
This is a slow motion. Actually, it is not. We will run it at slow motion to actually see what is happening.
Flame out.
Yeah.
So it loses
And he calls it a flame out again.
its rocket motor and then it just drops down.
And then it just drops out. What exactly drops? What do you see that is dropping? If a rocket loses the propulsion of it, it's not just going to fall out just like that. It still has some momentum to move forward. It's not just going to drop.
But what you also have when that happens is the fuel that's part of the rocket that hasn't burned. So when it
And this is another big lie, because what he's claiming actually is that the fuel is what caused the big explosion that killed 500 people. Let's listen. He's going to make it even worse for himself. Let's continue with him.
hits the ground, we'll see next
Here's
the
the
explosion.
video of an explosion from a viewpoint from the ground.
Yeah. Now this isn't a very big piece of ordnance. It's a relatively small ordnance. So the
He again is trying to implant the idea in your mind that this is a small ordinance. It's not Zionist munition. It is not. It's Hamas. It's Islamic Jihad, small ones. A small munition will do this big of a blast a mile away and kill 500 people. Then why haven't they done that before when they've fallen over the Zionists? Or do they have superpowers to resist these small ordnance?
the actual explosive isn't that big, but what is big is the fuel that it hasn't.
And again, this is just a stupid argument. He's claiming that the explosive charge has less damage than the fuel. Of course, the rocket is going to carry more fuel than the explosive charge, but the detonation of the missile is intended to explode the explosive charge, not the fuel. If the fuel was more powerful, then why would anybody put an explosive charge? They will just fly the missile and keep some of the fuel away from the combustion so that it can explode and create this massive explosion once it hits the ground.
Wasn't used. That caused a lot of cars in that parking lot to burn. We see the after effects of that. We see a very small crater. If it
And here is another lie, the small crater. The small crater is easily explained because most of these bombs that the Zionists use are actually using what's called a proximity sensor, meaning there is a sensor that detects how far the missile or the bomb is away from the ground. And once it gets close enough, it detonates the bomb. And the reason they do that to maximize damage, to kill more people, because then the explosion will not be absorbed by the ground. Most of the explosion will be absorbed if the detonation doesn't happen until you hit the ground. So this is why they do this. And this is another lie, and he knows it. He knows it.
had been a crater
Let's
from
actually take a look at what you're discussing here.
Let's roll this back and watch it. But this time in slow motion. So the first thing you would notice that it has changed direction here, and you can tell that because it's actually the blast behind it is changing. That means it's accelerating. And you can see it now going to the right. It's actually coming towards us. It's going to the right, and then it's changing direction going to the left. Remember what I said, that missiles can do that. Rockets cannot, especially the rockets that Hamas has. Very primitive. And here you can see the rocket changing direction, and you can see the diamond cone behind it. This is flying very fast. This is not Hamas rockets or Islamic Jihad. None of them fly this fast. And none of them definitely are capable of maneuvering. If they did, they would have penetrated the Iron Dome at a much higher rate. Here you can see the missile. This is an Iron Dome missile that is trying to hit and intercept a rocket by the Palestinians. Here, look, again, it's going to loop around and come big circle. There is no way that the Palestinians have this. If they had it, the war would have been over a long time ago. Not to mention, if the fuel that they use can create this much destruction, definitely the war would have been over a long time ago. Look at it making this big loop maneuver, very sharp turn, huge turn. This is only done by a missile with controllable surfaces so that they can maneuver around. And now it's seeking its target that's coming up. And once it gets close enough to it, it's going to detonate so that it can blow up that object. Here, you see it's changing direction now, and it's almost going straight into the screen. And it's about to detonate right now next to the missile launched by the Palestinians, or the rocket, sorry, the rocket. And here you see the blast. Look at the size of the blast. Look at the size of the blast. Nothing after this blast will survive. If this blast happened, are you telling me that there is still any fuel inside that rocket that has not burned? And look at it, it's a big fireball, big fireball. Everything in that rocket and that missile, both of them, has been obliterated. Everything is burned. And this is why nothing is left. Look, here is the explosion. You can see the explosion. You can see the all the flames. Nothing survived that. And if anything survived, it's still gonna fall down and cause that much damage. Then all these rockets that the Iron Dome has intercepted should have also created similar damage. Why this particular one? I hope this video shows you that the media is lying, propagating lies on behalf of the IDF, and the US government is supporting them and reiterating these lies to mislead the public. They're misleading the American public, the European public, so that they can go through this war, which benefits them. It only benefits them, nobody else. It's civilians that are dying on both sides. If these politicians really believe in these wars and in these causes, let them be on the front line. Let them go to the front line and fight. Please help me spread this video so that we can show the world that the IDF and the US government are lying and they're committing massacres in Palestine, occupied Palestine, 75 years of occupation. They have the right to resist. They have the right to get their land back. They have the right to protect their families, their women, their children. They have the right to live. Thank you.